Last month, I laid out the best coasters from A to Z, finding the 3 best coasters around the world for every letter in the alphabet, and needless to say, some people did not agree. But you all let me know you wanted a follow-up video, looking at the other side of the coin, so let's get down to it. These are the world's worst coasters, from A to Z. It's good to say, there's way more good coasters out there than bad, so where it made sense to give out a bronze, silver, and gold for the best ones, I'm only going to give out one stinky trash can for the worst. I'll still point out some candidates I considered, but there's only one winner, or should I say loser, per letter. Also, give me to 1,000 likes and I'll run down the best defunct coasters from A to Z. A. Anaconda at King's Dominion. Built in 1991, this was the last gift from the King's Entertainment Company before Paramount took over. Unlike other aero loopers, this did not age well. It's got 4 inversions, a loop, a sidewinder, 2 corkscrews, and it actually is kind of intense. But after the mid-course, it's got a lot of random slow turns, and the whole thing is kind of a head smasher. Aero has a lot of really good classics out there, but this is not one of them. B. There are a ton of Vekoma boomerangs out there called Boomerang, and you also got classics like Big Apple Coaster and Blue Tornado, but I'm going with Bandit at Movie Park Germany. This RCCA was built in 1999, and those who have ridden it say it's just insanely bad. I've never been there, but based on POV, I see what they mean. This has been in the RMC conversation for a long time. C. There's a lot of old aero corkscrews out there. The one at Michigan's Adventure is especially bad. You also have Condor at Wallaby Holland, and that kicked off the Vekoma SLC revolution. But for me, this goes to Coast Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. For this mock ride's large park wild mouse, it's more than just the shin guards. These were added just a few years into its life, following an incident where someone tried to exit the car while it was still moving. But this thing is just so unbelievably trimmed. It's slow, it hurts the shins, it's not enjoyable at all. D. There's a couple defunct ones I never got to ride. Drachenfire at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, an Aero Looper, and Dragon at Adventureland, a Hawkins Looper. Both were apparently very rough, but I'll never know. My pick is Do Whopper at Maurice Piers. This Zamperla zigzag coaster just has a bad design. After the slow switchbacks, it has your typical wild mouse drops, but these are so slow and shallow, there was just nothing to this ride. It was like a company that had no business making a wild mouse, trying to make a wild mouse. E. I could go with a Chance Rides Tobogan, Earthquake Magoon's Brain Rattler, but that name is just too good. I'll give this one to our first Vekoma SLC, Ednor at Laurent. This crossed the Canadian border in 2010, starting its life at Six Flags Astroworld, and unfortunately I've not ridden it. Given its reputation, its old school trains with the awful ear pads, and the fact it's been relocated, I think it's a good pick for this spot. F. I could go with another SLC, Flight Deck at Canada's Wonderland, but I'm going with a much worse coaster, Flashback at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I did have the displeasure of riding this, and it's hard to believe the same company behind Superman the Ride also designed this. Just hairpin turn after hairpin turn, lots of jerky movements, and that's no fun when you have over-the-shoulder restraints. There was no thrill here, just survival. Intamin only built one of these coasters, and it's good they did. G. For my East Coast friends, maybe it's Great American Scream Machine at Great Adventure, or maybe it's Goliath at Six Flags New England. And for my European friends, it's definitely Guderick's at Park Asterix. But for me, it's the worst coaster ever built, Green Lantern First Flight at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This was almost universally hated, an Intamin Zackspin that spends the first half doing nothing, and the second half trying to disembowel you. It didn't flip when it was supposed to flip, and it just made my eyes pop out of my head. It was a terrible torture device. H. We got 3 bad Woodies. Hurler at Carowinds and King's Dominion, Hercules at Dorney Park, and Hellcat at Clementon Park. Still, nothing beats Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This Skyline Skywarp only lasted 2 years. It was always broken. It just went into dive loop after dive loop. And despite having that RMC single rail track, for some reason, it was just stupid rough. I got to ride this once in 2019, and I'm glad I got to experience this train wreck of a so-called coaster. I could go with Green Lantern's Swedish cousin, Insane at Gornalund, but I'll spare that for now. I'll go with Infusion at Pleasure Beach Resort in the UK. This is another relocated SLC, its old name at Southport Pleasureland being Traumatizer, and that seems appropriate. This is another SLC with a terrible reputation, for all the same reasons as Ednor, I'm sure. Old, relocated, the nasty restraints, and even though I haven't been there, I bet it doesn't fit the Pleasure Beach name. J. Joker's Revenge at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, or Jester at Six Flags New Orleans. Not a lot of bad J coasters, so let's pick on this old Vekoma. This is their Hurricane model. Only 2 of these were built, and I guess the only cool thing is that in both locations the trains ran backwards. I'm not sure if that was a good thing or if it made the pain that much worse. 79 feet tall, less than 2,000 feet of track, 3 inversions, a loop and 2 corkscrews. This old school mid-90s Vekoma doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. K. I had a really bad time with Kenny's Forest Flyer at Dreamworld. That Vekoma Hang and Bang didn't really bang. It just pressed down on my shoulders and it hurt a lot. I'll spare Kenny's for this one, and I'll direct my ire to Kong at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Most SLCs can make this list, but there are a few that are especially bad when it comes to shaky head smashing. Kong is one of them. This opened in 1998, and I've ridden this twice. I think that's more than enough for a lifetime. L. There are tons of coasters that start with L, but I had a hard time finding a bad one. I picked one I actually kind of enjoy, but is extremely janky. Lava Bora at Six Flags Over Texas. This intimate bobsled was moved here in 1986. Its trough supposed to be a snake, and you sit single file in a 3-person car, just crashing down the track, not attached to it. Just rolling and twisting along, and I think it's a lot of fun. But if you're not in the front, you can smash your knees. This is not really a fan favorite, but the line is always long because, like I said, 3 people per car. M. Unlike L, there were so many options here. Mighty Canadian Mindbuster is terrible, so are most of the coasters named Mind Eraser. You got some bad woodies in Mean Streak and Montezuma, but this one belongs to Magnus Colossus at Terra Mythica. Here's another RCCA wooden coaster built in 2000, 118 feet tall, almost 3,800 feet of track, and what a great setting on the hillside. Too bad, it's apparently one of the roughest coasters ever built. If you want to ride it, it's been standing but not operating since 2016, so maybe at some point RMC can come in and work their magic. N. Nopuko Air Coaster at Lost Island. I didn't have a lot of good options, but I have no problem giving this dishonor to this SLC in Iowa. For as much as I loved almost everything at Lost Island, I think Nopuko was a strikeout. They got this secondhand from South Africa, and they gave it a new train, which was a very good idea. It just needed more than that. It needs a full retrack. Just like the Great Nor'easter at Maurice Piers. One ride was all I could do for this one. No headbanging thanks to the new trains, but the rattle and sudden jolts were just too much for me. O. Orient Express at Worlds of Fun. I didn't have a lot of great options here either, so I have to go back to this old Arrow from 1980. Like Loch Ness Monster, this was built with interlocking loops. This also including a batwing to add 2 more inversions. 115 foot drop, almost 3,500 feet of track, and apparently this got crazy rough over the years. This was taken out in 2003, being replaced by Spinning Dragons, and I would have loved to ride it, as long as I had some Advil ready. P. I had some pretty good options here. I'm pretty sure Cyclone at Magic Mountain caused me some brain damage as a kid. Predator at Darien Lake used to be the roughest wooden coaster in the country, and now with this new track, it's one of the most boring. Pirate's Hideaway at Casino Pier is one of the more lazy and pointless coasters out there, but my winner is Pegasus at Mount Olympus. This CCI wooden coaster is supposed to be family friendly, but the mild parts are slow and awkward, and then it snaps everyone's neck before the ride ends. As I asked before, who's this ride for? I still don't know. Q. I had basically nothing to choose from, so I went with Queen Bee at Botton's Pleasure Beach in the UK. This is a Pinfari inverted wacky worm. Honestly, I'm intrigued. This is the only one left standing, and despite its elite theming, it looks slow and I had to pick something, so sorry Queen Bee, it's you. R. I had some good options here. I personally don't like Roar at Six Flags America. Raging Wolf Bob's was not the most loved wooden coaster when it was at Jaga Lake. I know a lot of people don't like Raging Spirits at Tokyo Disney Sea, but my pick here is Rainier Rush at the Washington State Fair. This is meant to be a portable fair coaster, but I don't care. It doesn't give it an excuse to be terrible. It was built by Top Fun, wound around about 1,800 feet of track, and it had one inversion, this incline loop. It had bulky restraints, and the whole thing was janky and painful, and I was happy when it was over. Too bad for everyone out there, this closed in 2019. S. Skyrush. Just kidding, again. So many options here, most of them defunct. Sand Serpent at Busch Gardens Tampa wasn't good. Neither was Shockwave at King's Dominion. Neither was Superflight at Rye Playland. Neither was Son of Beast at Kings Island. But there is still one out there that's torturing everyone. Swiss Tobogan at Little America. This Chance Rides Toboggan takes you up a vertical lift, winds down the tower, and then goes into a couple jarring hills before the ride ends. That would be fine if it wasn't for the roof on your car. You don't want to be launched headfirst into that, but you are, and it messed me up pretty good. This is the one coaster I will never ride again. T. This was loaded on the good side, and it's loaded on the bad side. You know it's really bad when T3 at Kentucky Kingdom isn't even the worst. It's Time Warp at Canada's Wonderland. This Samperlo Volaire was my first of its kind, and it seemed like less of a coaster and more of a way to torture your enemies. You lay on your stomach and you can't see the track in front of you, so every time the car twists, you hit your head on the ear pads. Other Volaires don't have this, so why this one does, I don't know, but it's the main reason this one's so bad. Ultimate at Lightwater Valley. I wish I could have ridden this. It was one of the world's longest coasters at 7,442 feet, having 2 lift hills, really riding the terrain. But from all accounts, this coaster was horribly rough and not that exciting. Still, going all the way out of the park, into the countryside, pretty much riding on the ground the whole time. What a unique and cool experience. This closed down in 2019 and was finally demolished in 2022. There are a lot of Vipers out there, but by far the worst one was Viper at Six Flags Great Adventure. This was built by Togo in 1995, a basic compact looper, 89 feet tall, 1,670 feet of track, a dive loop and a heartline roll, and the park even paid extra to install metal rings around the track, making it look more like a Viper, and also making it look like the coaster it replaced. Another Togo that got removed in 1988, Ultra Twister. As you can imagine, as with all American Togos, this was not good. Rough track, bad transitions, headbanging, and after 10 seasons, they closed it down, ripped it out, and reused the station for El Toro. That was quite the upgrade. I know some Hershey Park fans were afraid to see Wildcat in this spot, but good news, Windjammer at Knott's Berry Farm once existed. We were just talking about bad Togos, and here you go. This was an absolute disaster. It was a dueling looping mouse, full of bad transitions and shallow drops, each side having 1 loop, and of course, absolute bricks on either side of your head. On top of being a terrible ride, it was also unreliable, and Knott's even sued Togo to recoup some of their losses. They didn't win, but that doesn't make this any less of a disaster. X. There are a bunch of good X coasters, but it was hard to find a bad one. I'm just gonna go with Extreme Racers at Legoland Billund. This is another Mock Rides Large Park Wild Mouse, same as Coast Rider. As far as I know, no terrible shin guards, but even with some decent theming, this probably wins by default. Why? I didn't have much to choose from, so let's go to Azerbaijan and give it to this coaster. Its translation is Swing Butterfly, but in Azerbaijani, it's Yelenchek Kepenek. Half these letters don't exist in the English language, so I'm sure I said it wrong. But still, it's a Y coaster. You see a lot of these butterfly coasters in Europe. It looks like something you'd find at a public park, not a theme park. But you basically get pulled up and dropped down and rocked back and forth. Z. I hate to do this, but because I didn't have a lot to choose from, I'm gonna reuse one of my other selections from this list. I think it's okay because the coaster was that bad. Z-Force at Six Flags Great America and Over Georgia. I know, it's the same coaster as Flashback at Magic Mountain. It was just called Z-Force when it was new and before it moved to California. I don't need to beat a dead horse. The ride was just terrible all around, and it opened at Great America in 1985, closed in 1987, moved to Over Georgia in 1988, lasted until 1991, and then spent the rest of his time at Magic Mountain starting in 1992. That's a wrap on the worst coasters in the world, from A to Z. Let me know what you think, if you would have picked any other coaster for any letter, and if you have any other thoughts, sound off in the comments below. If you want to see the best coasters from A to Z, click the card above, or the link in my end screen. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like. Give me 1,000 and I'll do the best defunct coasters from A to Z. And if you're new here and love content like this, please give me a sub. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you're also a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
No more.